Well, greetings and salutations to you, men, women, boys, and girls, cousins of all ages. We appreciate you being here with us. You know the man right next to me. That's Jay Campbell, my comrade in arms, one of the, I would just say the leading, which side am I on? The leading physical optimization guy in the entire country for sure. And one of the growing spiritual voices as well for all over optimization. And joining us today is author James True. I've read 2 of his books. I don't know how many he's written, but we're looking forward to having a great discussion on things like the technology of belief and blueprints of mind control. I'm finished with this one, about 3/4 through that one. So we're looking forward. And James True, welcome to the Christian Whistleblower channel, and we're glad to have you here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Been looking forward to this for a long time. Thank you very much, both of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Jeff, let me just say real quick. So you guys, James is not like normal people that we bring on the show. Like, he really truly has hacked through what I would call the matrix of modern reality. James, is it fair to call you kind of like an Appalachian shaman? Is that okay?
Maybe Appalachian, alchemist would be
an alchemist. Alchemist is a better word, probably, right?
Self-proclaimed title, yeah, for sure.
But I mean, realistically, man, like, I've read a lot. Jeff's read a lot. You know, Jeff is obviously deeply researched in biblical and ancient religious texts, and you really did do an amazing job of like I said, of like hacking through again, the matrix. You know, our good friend that Jeff and I have had on, Pierre Sabak, and I don't know if you're familiar with his works, but I mean, he's literally like interpreted all of the etymological root meaning of languages and how they've inverted that. And so it's like, we read yours, or I started reading yours after I read his, and it was like the perfect segue. But as you know, there's no coincidences. And so it's like your information came to Jeff and I right after his. So it's like, you've just done an amazing job. And obviously I'm going to shut up and let you talk. But I mean, I really was mesmerized by the technology of belief. In fact, for 4 weeks in my email newsletter, I was sharing messages of the stuff you put. And let me just put this up here. This is like one of the most profound statements that I have literally
I love those little magnets
ever seen from anyone. The mind control will continue until sovereignty improves. And obviously I was sharing that on tagging James on Twitter with that. That right there summarizes this planet. It's that simple. We are in mind control because people have given up their sovereign, empowered soul, natural born rights to them, and taking again away ownership of the responsibility and personal accountability.
Yeah. And before we go any further, let me let you know that James True has a great website that is jtrue.com. And he's just started a YouTube channel. James, give us the name of your YouTube channel so everyone can go right now and subscribe.
That'd be great. Yeah, I think you're going to have to just do a search for James True, because I'm one of those small guys. But it seems to come up whenever you do a search for that. And then if you hit my website, you'll see that my latest post has taken you to my latest video. So
perfect. So jtrue.com and then the James True website. And it's funny. I had that same little magnet, and I remember when I lived in Germany, the joke was, the beatings will continue until morale improves.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was reading today, and I don't want to jump ahead, but I read today the little blurb you had about if you were to make a pope, a reptilian pope, and it's just so right on. And it's, something that Crowley went into. Do you want to start off with that and then just go where you want to go, James?
Well, sure. So the Reptilian Space Pope is a story I wrote in the earlier book, The Blueprints of Mind Control. And that's the one that you guys haven't gotten to yet. But actually, that's the first book that I would sort of recommend people read first. However, there's no problem like intermixing them.
Yeah.
But the Blueprints of Mind Control is purely focused on surgically removing the pincers from your ego. Right. And it's doing that by shedding 47 different blueprints all across life of how psychopathy is used to constrict your intuition and your ego and to subdue you. And one of those stories is the Reptilian Space Pope, which basically outlines a masterful, I'm going to use the word beautiful plan. I'm using the word beautiful because these are artists that are at work in the psychopathic realm. Their paint is psychopathy. The canvas is your mind.
Right.
And they are physically stepping in to harness the most important alchemical gold that can be found on this planet, which is you, your belief, your essence, your awareness. This is pranic honey. It's gold. It's plasma in the form of gold, is what belief is. And the Reptilian Space Pope is basically explaining how perfect it's going to be when this Reptilian Space Pope lands. Because he's millions of years more evolved, all of us will have to bow down to their wisdom and Gnosticism in order to understand things that we as peons would never be able to fathom, such as just how dirty we are, just how disgusting our carbon footprint is, just how poisonous the exhalation of our breath is to the environment. And what I'm doing here is using sarcasm to paint. This is how they are painting you into a pit where you end up feeling like the only thing that could possibly happen is someone greater than you could come by and save you. And the Reptilian Space Pope is that perfect example. So it outlines how if you were to genetically engineer a puppet, how you would want it to have certain characteristics, such as big, giant kitten eyes. You wouldn't want it to be too wild. You'd want it to look like a sleek, futuristic, clean butler. Something that would not intimidate any of you. So you'd make it shorter than humans. You'd still want it to have hands and thumbs and things like that. So it would appeal to the anthropomorphic nature that we all have, but you wouldn't want it to be dangerous. So you take out things like teeth. You'd remove any kind of symbolism that might suggest that it's somehow dangerous or violent. You turn it into a living E.T., the extraterrestrial, by Steven Spielberg, and then you would tell everyone that it knew things that you could never possibly know, and it was nice enough to come here to stop you from destroying yourself because of what basically you're a pond scum that accidentally evolved into a masturbating monkey and managed to crawl yourself on the shore. You really shouldn't even be here. I mean, look at yourself. Again, this is the sarcasm that they're painting into your mind. Right. So you end up looking forward to a Reptilian Space Pope who's going to come in and tell you, yeah, look, here's a candle. You need to not burn more energy than this candle. Because if you do that, you are destroying all that is precious and important in life. And again, that's just one of many blueprints inside this book that shows you just how important your belief is and just how far they are willing to go to entrap it and to control and manipulate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So belief is actually the real capital of this realm.
Absolutely. Positively. Yes. That's why none of us are living in chains. That's why none of us are being feared or beaten into submission. We are led into submission through our beliefs. That there are two main goals to shepherdize a belief. You have a crook and a flail. These are the tools of the Pharaoh. The crook is a gentle hook. It's used by the shepherd to lead the sheep back into his arms. And then you've got the flail, this cat of nine tails. So you've got shame and fame. Instead of us being sheep, though, we're not going to see a large stick or the cat of nine tails. Instead, we're going to see these electrical chemical prods that occur inside of our brain. And that prodding, one's going to be a gentle leading. It's going to be oh my goodness, here, have some fame, have some virtue. Or it's going to be this, have some shame, have some guilt. Both of these tools are instrumental. If you're going to eat something, you're going to want a fork and a knife. You're going to want these two tools that are just a little bit different that you're going to use to slaughter your prey. And the prey in this sense is your mind, your intuition, your belief, the belief in yourself, the centering of your awareness, your assemblage point, almost like a needle on a record. You start with that needle in the center of your heart. But as you grow up through trauma programming, through dissonance, through lies, through shame, they're able to pull that center, that needle out of your chest and physically place it somewhere else, in a messiah or in a politician or in Obamacare or in war with another country. It's going to pull it somewhere else, anywhere else. Your favorite artist, a movie that you're watching, a television show, your boss, your
the
job,
Super Bowl. I'm in Kansas City area. Your favorite team.
The number of stripes on your sleeve, the quality of the silk in your tie, the amount it would cost to lease the car that you're currently driving.
Right.
All of these are the crook and flail of mind control. And that's why mind control is chemical control. It's the constriction or injection of serotonin and dopamine through the zeitgeist, through the the crowd itself. This is crowd control via chemical control inside yourself. So it's not even really mind control. It's something much deeper. It's an adrenal control. But if I was to call this book Blueprints of Adrenal Control, no one would buy it. Right. They wouldn't understand that.
Now, Jay, from your scientific background with what James is talking about with the controls and the hormones and the secretions, would you say that's accurate?
It's 100% accurate. I mean, that's exactly what's going on since, the invention of birth control. I mean, when they created birth control, the downstream, which we're now seeing the second and third order effects of birth control, is a more feminized man, men who are less in control of their emotions, less in control of who they are as physical beings, obviously completely emasculated in culture. But yeah, I mean, all of this, I mean, it's really, as he said, if we really went back to like after World War II when they stopped killing us through, bombing and war means, now the hypnotization, the real endemic mind control is through technology and the manipulation of us through all of these things. And, James talks about this in his books, and obviously I 100% agree with him, but we're now at a point where we are so entrained by all of these devices that even people of high vibration, right? Like if you do not detach and make it a personal mission every day to go into nature, to silence your mind, to meditate, to do all these things that you have to literally do to move away from this, demiurgus negative technology construct, you have no way. I mean, you are completely controlled. And, something you just said, I mean, the truth really is that everything you just said, they are manipulating us so fiercely through our adrenals. And ultimately, until you recognize that you are sovereign and empowered and in control of yourself, and again, you have to take ownership for who you are. They own you, man. Yep. And all these people, what you said, James, like I thought back 2 weeks ago, right, when Kobe died, that was a giant ritual murder, whatever it was, who cares? That so many people gave up their sovereignty. And for 3 or 4 days, we're like, dude, oh my God, Kobe died. What are we going to do? And it's like, dude, what did Kobe, is he paying your bills? Other than you watched him play a couple times, you maybe were lucky, because I live on the West Coast, you went to the Lakers, you saw him play in person. How did he affect your life? But you said it, James, people give up their sovereignty to their heroes, their celebrity culture worship, whatever it is, and they're totally disempowered.
And James, when you're talking, I can't help but think, especially with my background, that what you're talking about is the exact blueprint and manifestation of the Abrahamic religion, fear and guilt control matrix.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the 2 towers. Yeah, it's 2 towers. It's always 2 towers. Every single time, it's always 2 towers. The Kabbalistic spell of red and blue, evil and good, Joachim and Boaz, the North Tower and the South Tower of WTC. It's always 2 towers. Islam and Judaism, it's always 2 towers. That's why every time you see 2, every time you see a polarization of 2, you're being played, my friend.
Republican, Democrat, black, white.
You're being played.
It's
250 million Americans have not decided just by chance that, it's either going to be one way or the other. Israel has 42 political parties. 42. America has 2. That should show you that someone is being manipulated here. Right. Your choices are being they're not even choices. It's very disrespectful to call them that.
Yeah, I've got 3 kids, and I remember when I was trying to, you want to give the kids the perception of choice, but you want them to do what the hell you want them to do. I'd give them 2 choices between things that I wanted them to do. And I wanted to throw this out before I forget it. I was on Coast to Coast AM on Tuesday night, and George Norrie made a statement that I thought was amazing. He said to me, Jeff, I've been doing this a long time, because there were callers coming in, they were trashing me hard. And he said, I've never seen a time where so many people are so angry, so vicious, filled with vitriol. We can't disagree respectfully anymore. It is just anger and rancor and malice. And for George Norrie, who's been doing broadcasting for 50 years, to say he's never seen it before, how would you respond to that, both of you guys? And what do you think that's a manifestation of?
Go ahead, James.
James True.
Well, so a lot of people dismiss me here on this, and that's cool. But I think that Greater Israel's next, and it's going to require a certain amount of polarization for this to be installed.
You mean it's next as it's going to be taken down, or?
No, it's going to be created.
Okay.
It actually is already being created.
Right.
I need people to understand that Intel and AMD are the only two companies that make every single processing chip that you will ever see, know, touch, or use from now until all of us die. And who knows what's going to happen after that.
Right. And
the keeper of that company is literally in charge of all language. They are in charge of Babel now. They are in charge of Babylon,
Artifact
of communication. The Tower of Babel is being rebuilt as we speak. It's being rebuilt. This is not the first time. This is one of many towers that archetypally gets created every 26,000 years or 13,000 years or however many years you want to call it. It doesn't matter. The point is that we are fractally designed to recreate this tower of anti-sovereignty, which is an alchemical blender, which is here making us turn ourselves from lead into gold. We are here to alchemically cleanse ourselves of lies. Learning to discern truth inside of our own instrument is a vital, colossal work. It is the true great work. But the great work has been hijacked by something else, which is this New World Order, this concept of a one world, one Lord. There can be only one. It's the quickening. It's the Highlander, the quickening.
That's right.
Spread across religion, science. I'm even saying that like they're separate, like religion and science, and they're not even separate anymore.
Scientism. Yeah.
But it's the same kind of prevalence that's been spread across there. That this is a very important recipe that's been in play for 7,000 years. And I would say that just as Wesley Clark said, and just since World War II, every 1.29 years, America has invaded or bombed another country. It doesn't matter what regime, doesn't matter who's in power, doesn't matter how good or how bad the economy is doing. Every 1.29 years since World War II, the New World Order, America, has invaded or bombed another country. This is not just a random virus. This Wetiko, this psychopathy that's invaded our country is a plan. It is an injection. It's a very important plan. And that plan is going to manifest itself in many ways, only one of which is Greater Israel. Please hear me correctly. This is not an anti-Jew thing, nor is it even suggesting that this is all about Jews. It's not, because the Jews aren't even the Jews.
Right, exactly.
This is mass dissonance that's creating this structure where everyone is thrown into a pit. Everyone is now predictable because everyone wants one thing. They want to get out of the damn pit. Right. And that's how constriction works.
So let me ask you this.
Fascinating.
So who created the Wetiko?
I would say that the First Supper created the Wetiko. And that's another story in my book. It's if you look at I think it's important we understand what evil is. I don't think evil is a creature. A creature has blood in it. Blood is red. Red is not evil. Red is life. Blood is life. It's a living force. Literally blood cells are screaming, I am, all 7 trillion of them right now in your body. That's not evil. That's the opposite of evil. That's alive. Evil is an evacuation. It's a machine. Evil is a wood chipper that's been turned on in a play yard and then left. It's been abandoned. It's the apathy. A cancerous apathy is what the true definition of evil is. And so if you look at the satanic machine, whether it be if you enlist in the military, now it's okay to kill someone just based on their fashion decision. What is that person wearing across the field? Oh, it's not my color. I will shoot them now. Right. That's an evacuation that requires you to evacuate yourself. When we circumcise a child when they're born, We are evacuating that child.
Trauma programming.
We're claiming that it's sanitation that we're after, and this baby is the antithesis of that. Therefore, we have to do this. We evacuate our children at age 4 when we send them off to school, something that we're pretending is voluntary. But if you look in France and Sweden right now, it's not even a choice. It's a freaking law that you have to abandon your child to the state by age 4. They're trying to change it to age 2. All of these things are the exact same definition of evil. It's an evacuation of the self. That's what narcissism is. That's what sociopathy is. That's what psychopathy is. All of these are the exact same type of evil. It's this wetiko. It's the abandonment of the person, the leaving of the assemblage point. Now, all that, get back to the First Supper. The First Supper is cannibalism. A long time ago, someone who had an archetype of a lion said, I have worked hard. This person named Saturn said, I've worked hard for this kingdom. I've worked really hard. I don't want to lose it. I want my family to preserve my legacy. How am I going to get them to preserve it? I need them to evacuate who they are and become a living representation of my spell that I'm implanting inside my DNA. Therefore, I'm going to take my youngest child, Tiamat. I'm going to chop him into 1,000 pieces, and I'm going to make my other children eat Tiamat. Why? Because the moment you enter into cannibalism is the moment that you cease to be a human. There are certain thresholds that you encounter through sin, through all. Kanye West is a perfect example of this. There are certain thresholds where once you cross a certain threshold and you've done something so bad, you can't come back. You're not able to rebuild the parthenia. This is an essence of goodness inside yourself. I don't want to get distracted there, but that's a very important word that we've forgotten.
It is.
But once you pass this threshold, you're not able to come back. And cannibalism, pedophilia, anything that's like really bad like that, you're passing a threshold in your adrenals. It's very much like if you've ever taken an amplifier and taken it into clip where you're playing it too loud, right? You're breaking the fidelity of that instrument. It becomes, after a while, it's not able to discern the goodness of it because it's been blown out. All that to say that what happens is that wetiko is installed. It's installed through brutality. You end up with a DNA vessel that's resonating trauma so bad that there's no hope at all that someone could ever emerge inside that vessel and be able to keep their needle inside themselves. It's going to be thrown out constantly. And when it's thrown out, they're going to resonate something. What are they going to resonate? They're going to resonate that first spell of, I want my legacy to live on forever. I, Saturn, want my name to be remembered forever and ever and ever, and I'm willing to abandon my kids to get it. That truly is like the first case of evil, I think. If you look into Kabbalistic law and Adam, you also have the concept of lying. The very, very first lie occurred when Adam told the angel, yeah, God told me no one can get back in here, so I need you to make sure no one gets here. He's pretending that God cast him out, when really what Adam was doing was telling all of his people, all you fuckers are evil now. You're all bad. But wait, and this angel's proven it. He told me. See, there's this concept of lying. There's this concept of, that's the first black spell, is the lie. The second, this act that you do, this ritual of cannibalism, is something that you're really not able to come back from. I'm sorry, that's all over the place, guys, but it's all that.
No. But I mean, I'm believe me, I'm listening and I'm following. I'm going to grill you now.
Absolutely.
There are, yes or no, there are, though, master architects of a quote unquote divinity nature. Again, both sides of the duality complex. Are you, and again, I've read your first, well, it's your second book. I'm sorry. And I'm, again, fascinated. Right. Technology of Belief. Do you not agree, though, that there are divine stirrers of the duality architect or complex of, the good and evil, so that there are, and again, I don't know if you say yes or no, but I mean, again, I look at what Pierre Sabak has decoded, and again, he says it's the, he calls it his book is called Holographic Culture, but he calls it the, Jeff, help me out. My brain is completely melted. The artifact is the language, the root language inversion. But what is he called? Oh, the dialectic. So the dialectic is between the seraphic angelic beings, which he says are reptilian, serpent-like, and the proto-human divine beings, and that's where we all come from. Do you think that there are some root origin species beings that created us, that this is where we come from? And again, it's an opinion question.
Yeah, this is just my opinion. So people are going to disagree, and I just want to say, right on, man. This is my cosmology. It's just my cosmology.
Right.
I firmly believe that archons, whether good or bad, any kind of divine figure or an archetype, like a divine archetype, is a form of disassociation. I believe that God already has a language, and that language is silence. I think back to my mother when I used to play soccer. My mom was coach once, and I was like 5 or something, and I ran the ball into my own goal, and I scored a goal against my own team, and I was like, never been so happy. And my mom didn't run onto the field and stop everything and say, whoa, 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 dude, I need you to turn around. You need you to go that way. If my mom was to do that, she would be abandoning my free will.
Yeah.
She would be hurting me as her child. If she wanted what's best for me, she would speak to me in silence. She would convey a sense of her presence through the absence of noise. It would be a type of speaking to me that would be completely uncorruptible. No one could ever say, no, that's not what she said. She said this. I distinctly heard her say this, or no, I wrote it down. Instead, she's talking in a language that is incorruptible, and that's silence. So in my opinion, there doesn't require, it's almost like ruining it for there to be a blinking light of God, or a vessel, or a sefer, or something that's activated by that. This entire place is alive, but materialism is convincing us that everything is made of stone, but there's only certain pieces of stone that are imbued with a soul. I think what you're entering into is a Kabbalistic spell. Again, it's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Where things are now specialized, but they're inside of a sterile, non-living world. This is what Medusa does. It's the power of materialism. It's convincing you that things are finite. And more importantly, I think the biggest illusion that ever we have, that Kabbalists injected, is that we were created. You need to understand what happens the moment you believe in a creation. You believe in this idea of a finite timeline, a single thread. When if you were to look back into culture pre-Kabbalism, which really, guys, we're getting into like root paganism, like what paganism truly was. I'm not talking about satanic sacrifice. That's literally the opposite of what I'm talking about. I'm talking about paganism, which was connected to their ancestors. It was all about their DNA sequence, connecting to that DNA sequence. The pagan culture didn't have a cyclical calendar like we did. They didn't have a Kabbalistic calendar. They didn't have a Julian calendar. They certainly didn't walk around going, oh, it's 13 BC. Hey, in 13 years, Christ comes. Like no one talked that way. They didn't even look at years that way. Everything was a 7-day cycle. Everything was on a 13-moon cycle. There was no beginning or end. And if you really think about that, guys, like if you really meditate on that beginning or end, you can start to see where Wetiko comes from. You can start to see how there is a chisel placed in the granite of an eternal, infinite fractal. And it struck with the notion that you were created, that there was a time when first everything was created, the space was created, and then at the very last minute you were inserted into it as if you were some sort of foreigner. That really does start to introduce you in this idea that you're a myth, you're finite, you're going to die, and that you aren't an integral part of this place.
It's like a spiritual Big Bang.
Yes, exactly. That Big Bang is the striking of that chisel, which really is the first disassociation. You start to disassociate from your physical world around you. In fact, you're calling it a physical world. I majored in philosophy, and I'm surrounded by all these idiots walking through the hallway going, oh, it's the mind, it's the body, it's the mind. And meanwhile, psychologists are like, dude, that is disassociation. Why are you disassociating and pretending to call it academics? Again, it's just my cosmology. It's just something that I've been using lately that's really helped me to understand maybe a different vista on this world.
So there wasn't a creation. It just, we've always been.
It's a fractal, you know. It's if you were to picture a fractal and I was to show you this beautiful fractal and you were to ask me, well, where's the beginning? It'd be like, what do you mean the beginning? Like this is spun. It's not like you were unfolded inside of it is what we are. We're not created and dropped in. We are unfolded like a fan inside of it. It's a totally different way of thinking about it. You're much more
integral to everything.
Yes, you are integrated. And that's such an important psychological concept because sovereignty comes through integration. When we start to ground, when we start to place our feet in the soil again, we are integrating with the land again. And where is God? I don't think God is up in Mount Olympus. God is inside the earth. God is a living vibration of the soil. We are a living manifestation of soil. Soil is the living God. We are that living spirit. And because of our DNA, we have a certain resonance. We have a tuning fork that's made in the porous nature of our bones. Our bones have a porous nature, and we literally feel truth in that resonance. And that resonance, I think, comes from epigenetic wisdom through our ancestors. Just like we talk about trauma programming, it's really important that you understand there's also wisdom programming, that there are people that are imbued with wisdom from their forefathers because their grandfather was a badass. He was a fucking badass who only did what was right. Now that grandson is able to tap into that power in a very unique, powerful way. No one else can tap into it. Only he can, because it's a special kind of resonance that's happening inside of his DNA. That's why culture is trying to install amnesia everywhere. That's why we're walking around pretending that Columbus discovered America. When he didn't discover shit, he erased America. By us calling states what we're calling states, what we're really doing is erasing this serpentine culture that was underneath, this giant culture that used to be here, this really advanced Quetzalcoatl type system that was destroyed and erased that we don't know anything about. Again, the amnesia keeps us in this. The amnesia is very similar to Novocaine, but it's Novocaine for your belief, because now you're just not able to feel or tap into who you are.
But wow. Jay, I mean, so I'm not buying you, brother. I mean, I love you, and I think you're on it in a lot of ways. And I'm a very advanced plant medicine user, and I know what you say about God being, a divine, natural, harmonic wave. It's 100% down, but there's got to be more organization to the chaos. The chaos is not random. You're telling me that chaos is random. It's not. It's highly.
I'm saying that.
Well, yeah, you are. You're saying that this is that we're enveloped in whatever this is, and as much as I think you're an amazing guy and you're really smart and bright, like there is much more organization to the chaos than, in my opinion, what you're giving it credit. There is absolutely, positively a prime evil mover that is making us or beings like us or whatever act the way that we act. I mean, I choose personally not to act without control. I am completely empowered and sovereign in everything that I do. I serve other people. I am, like, again, it's my focus to be a high vibration person. I'm human, so I err and I get egoic and react, but it's my focus to do it. And from what I'm hearing, from what you're saying that the majority of people are not empowered, and they're never going to be empowered, unless I'm misunderstanding you.
So, yeah, I think we are opposite on that, which is cool, by the way.
Absolutely.
I got no problem with that.
Makes for good podcasting too.
Yeah. So really, really crucial part of my book, Blueprints of Mind Control, is I'm trying to get people to understand that ego is good.
Absolutely.
Ego is a gasoline.
Amen.
And we're living in a culture where we're pretending that the good people are wandering around on empty, and they're at that stoplight, and they're not going to wait for the old lady to cross the street because they're freaking out because they're going to run out of gas. And that's how we're taught to be 24/7. When in fact, ego is a plasma. It's a plasma of belief in the self. And the more gasoline you have, the more apt you're going to be to let the old lady cross the road, because you're not in any hurry, man.
Oh,
And
good
not
point.
only that, you may even get out of the car and go, hey, I got an extra gallon right here. Let me fill your tank up, buddy.
There's no sense of lack.
We're taught it's the exact opposite, though. We are actually taught that chaos is evil and order is good. And I don't think that's the case at all.
That's a great
Order
thought.
is.
I mean, I don't think that. I mean, I don't think that at all. I'm just saying that what I'm saying is we're not on the same wavelength at all.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that there are grand movers in this universe, and you're saying there's not.
Okay, so I'd like to talk about that because I think
Let me see if I can bring a little of a mediating position. I'm kind of, I understand where Jay is, and I think I understand where James is, and I think, and this is just me, this is my, my study, my belief. But I hate the word belief, but this is what I know from what I've studied. This is what I know from what I've studied. I am pretty convinced that we have made the mistake as humans externalizing and looking out there. And part of that manifestation is this whole extraterrestrial. It's got to be the ETs. They got to be from the backside of Uranus. They got to be from here. They got to be from there. And I think a lot of it might actually be intraterrestrials, things from here. And we have exported our divinity and sovereignty. To me, just to hear Jay say there's things that move and shake, bad things, good things, that means that I'm not my own mover and my own shaker. So I think I'm somewhere in between you two guys.
Well, I'd like to clarify this a little bit because, and again, it's not even to try and win. I could be wrong.
This is the beautiful thing when you say, here's a point. Here's a point. Now let's talk about them and get to a synthesis.
Yeah, I think that we start to lose sovereignty when we personify and anthropomorphize evacuation. When we start to call that evacuation a living prime mover of evil or a creature that's trying to cause dissonance, we're creating an identity inside the Leviathan. We're giving a cog, a machine, an identity. And I think that because belief is so powerful, and I love belief, I love the word belief, it's my favorite word. Because belief is so powerful, by personifying this evil, by putting a face on it, giving it a name, what you're really doing is giving it your prana. You're feeding it this plasma, and you're saying, live, be born, become a living creature. And what I'm saying is that this is why I'm using this analogy of it's a wood chipper turned on inside a playground and then left behind. The person who turns it on isn't watching the kids fall into the wood chipper. I know this is awful, but I need you to think this through. The person that's watching the kids fall into the evil wood chipper is invested in the value of their life. He sees the child as a super valuable, priceless thing, and he's watching it be extinguished inside this wood chipper. He's giving it homage to stay and witness it. This is a different kind of, it's not even apathy. It's a hate. Love and hate are the exact same streams. If you picture Ghostbusters and you've got those plasma streams, love and hate are the exact same energy. You're pouring that love into. It's apathy. It's the turning away of that is what true evil is. When we evacuate ourselves, when we turn away from our own wood chipper and allow our own hunger, our own dissonance, our own pain to be its wood chipper in that world, that's truly the source of evil. It's not when we start to relish in it or when we become a sadist, because we're trained to be sadist or masochistic in the world. This is, again, the crook and the flail working on it. The most important thing we can do if we really want to understand things is to reach for our sovereignty, which means evacuation is the lack of self. It is not the presence of any kind of living creature. In fact, this machine is here to cause us to evacuate ourselves because it's going to allow us to find presence even stronger. It's the alchemical process of turning lead into gold. It doesn't require a mad Rumpelstiltskin. This all could be a machine that we've created. The zeitgeist could be something that archetypally comes up naturally inside of ourselves as just the desire for our adrenals to reach inside themselves and become more true. These are totally different models for looking at the world. I admit that. And not to say one's right or one's wrong. But if you look at the world as evil does not exist, what exists is evacuation, you find so much more power in that cosmology than you could ever find by pretending that there's a demiurge, this creature that has a will that's trying to make things more difficult.
I'm sorry, bro. Negative.
So what happens if you don't evacuate, James?
Not a chance. Not a chance. I mean, I could go into seriously an epistemological conversation and discussion here, but then we'll lose, 95% of people watching because they won't know what I'm talking about. But at the end of the day, dude, what you're basically saying, okay, so if you're right, then what is the purpose of us even being here right now?
To alchemically transmit from lead to gold.
Okay, and then what? And then what?
But I don't understand.
What happens? What happens after that?
What happens after your gold?
Does the golden age start once that happens? Once everybody transmutes?
Why does something have to? That's like saying, hey, if you're going to ride your snowboard down the hill, and you do a great trick,
what is your big picture? What is your?
I'm trying to answer. Allow me to answer.
I haven't heard it yet, so I'm ready. I'm ready for your big
You're
picture.
riding your snowboard down the hill. You've done a great trick.
If you're riding your snowboard down the hill and you've done a great trick, what's the point? What comes after that? I mean, if you did a great triple somersault,
no. So what is?
Why would you do that? Like, what's the point?
Much bigger metaphysical question.
But seriously, what's the point of that? Why would you just want to be graceful
on this planet right now, James?
What's the goal of just being graceful?
Human beings being on this planet right now. That's what I'm asking you.
Yeah,
and
I'm answering
your book. Your summary is an ancient meaning whispers behind a veil of forked tongues. Kabbalah is a vocal tradition pretending to know God's name. First, they called him Zoroaster. Then they called him Ahura Mazda. Then they called him Yahweh and Allah. Only you know God's name. Don't give that power away. Okay. So when you don't give the power away, that's what I'm asking. What happens next? What happens to this planet?
I don't know how to explain because I couldn't get you to answer my question, Jay.
Okay, what's your question?
What is the point of someone being graceful? What comes after that?
Being graceful. The point of being graceful.
Yeah.
Individually or collectively? I'm thinking big picture. I'm not thinking.
Okay, if you were to master a tea ceremony and you were to pour the perfect cup of tea for the perfect person on the perfect day, what comes after that?
You feel joy, you feel happiness, you feel bliss. Okay.
So why could you not feel joy, bliss, or happiness from alchemically turning to gold?
Well, what's the point of the Mona Lisa?
Okay, so I misunderstood what you were saying. So yeah, now that's amazing. Like if that's, so you're saying that if we master our sovereignty, that all of the, whatever you want to call it, the darkness, the negativity, it just disappears instantly. That's what
I don't think that darkness and negativity are things that are like a cancer that we're here to avoid. I think those are notes. Those are really important notes that are meant to play.
Okay.
We are here to conduct our own song, and that song's going to have to. We're going to have the sovereignty and freedom to play the deepest bass and the highest treble we could possibly imagine. If we didn't have that, there's no point in us. If we're going to have referees or archons or gods or people that are stirring us and telling us, oh, you did the wrong thing, get back in there and do the right thing, none of this has any point at all. It's only when we're placed in this canvas and there's literally no limit to the amount of depth, color, or lack of color that we could put in here. It is really, really going to make that a real exercise. Otherwise, we're just painting by numbers, which to me seems futile. It seems really pointless to say, well, you're supposed to come out of here and end up, either a good guy or the bad guy. It's more like a Plinko thing, which I think was more of this materialism thing that we fall into, where there has to be a process, there has to be an end, there has to be a next day, there has to be a next day, there has to be a next day. I don't know if there has to be that.
So you don't think, I buy all that. So you don't think, though, that we as soul beings are in this existence, in this realm, whatever this is, to learn so that, the source energy, the soil, as you rephrase it, can continue to learn through our individual experiences. So you don't think that we as soul beings are all interconnected in some capacity?
I think we're here to alchemically change ourselves from lead into gold, that our awareness, that our belief system is something that's crude, elementary neophyte, and that we're apt to believe in anything, whether it be Zoroaster or Ahura Mazda or Madonna or the church or whatever, or Barack Obama.
Right.
That there's the proof right now of how much work we all have to do, as we're here. So this is definitely an alchemical training ground. I think if there weren't, I would then start to argue then the world of lies means that it's broken. This world isn't broken. This world is functioning exactly as it's meant to. This is a perfect world that we have. All the evil that you see, all the terrible things that you see is part of what makes this world so perfect.
Yeah. James, what is the point of us being here as individuals?
I think to suggest that there has to be like one point or one thing, it's almost like saying, well, why is that fractal there?
So are we here really to learn to master a moment?
So, well, let's think about it from a fractal, just for a sec, because
can you define a fractal before we start?
So a fractal, in our minds, a fractal is all based on math. It's purely an X and Y coordinate that's mapped, where you're looking at, can this number be reduced by itself enough to where it stays within a certain bubble, or does it blow up and go on forever? It's just a pure math test that you do to certain numbers. But what ends up happening is if you apply every single number to this same formula, you end up with this shape, this Mandelbrot set, this really strange looking, almost like a bud or a flower that appears inside the code. And things are either black, they're outside of this code, or they're a really vibrant color, they're inside the code. That color refers to the amount of times it was able to reduce itself or to transmute itself and still stay inside this bubble. Anyway, that's basically what a fractal is.
Okay.
When you open a fractal up, you can zoom in on a fractal. And when you zoom in, it keeps changing. It keeps changing. The math keeps showing you itself deeper and deeper and deeper. You could literally zoom in on fractals for infinity, and you would keep seeing different colors. Unless you were outside the Mandelbrot set, then you would just keep seeing blackness. So there is an infinite nature to math that we already see, that we already have present. Now, why? Why the hell is that there? If you start to understand how the world truly works, what I'm talking about here is logos truth. I'm talking about things that don't have a choice but to be a certain way. Let's talk about direction, okay? If you were to imagine yourself on flat land where everything is on a flat sheet of paper, you would only have the ability to move X or Y. You would never have the ability to move Z. There's a famous book called Flatland that talks about this. If you were just to use your mind in a teleological experiment, you would understand that zipper creatures would start to automatically develop in this world. What I mean by that is that since no things can pass each other in a two-dimensional world, some creatures would develop the ability to split and pass through something and then join later on. Now, this is really important. I know it sounds weird, but because you're dealing in a two-dimensional space, you can now discern something that would naturally occur in that world simply by looking at the parameters of the two-dimensional space. You would create this zipper creature. The same thing, the exact same thing is true of the three-dimensional world. But actually, we're probably in a five-dimensional world. Some will argue more, but I'm just arguing that the fourth dimension is time. The fifth dimension is free will. That's where we start to diverge from math here, but the fifth dimension is free will. My point is that if you do the same experiment where you extrapolate how in a two-dimensional world this creature would develop this zipper mechanism, the exact same thing would occur in a five-dimensional world. We would have things like good and evil. We would have archetypes that would naturally develop, one of which is red shoes. Red leather shoes would become an archetype no matter what. There would be some kind of leader that would end up with psychopathy, killing a bunch of other people, and they would celebrate that by wearing red shoes. That same archetype would appear every 26,000 years. Every 26,000 years, cannibalism would show up. Every 26,000 years, war would show up. Every 26,000 years, a politician would show up promising that he would take care of every single person in the world. Now, these are not prime evil movers. I'm trying to explain why I'm different on Jay here. There's not like a person that's saying, we have to have red shoes. We have to have an evil church. We have to have this. We have to have that. It's a natural function of living in this 5-dimensional space. We're going to have these avenues where we could physically manifest the difference of certain things, like hair color, like skin tone, like sexuality. All the different things that we have that make us different are a natural function of the archetype of living in a 5-dimensional world. You don't have to have an archon that does this. It's just an expression of this place and our role inside it. Whew.
Interesting. So if what I'm hearing you saying is that if there is a devil, we've created him. If there is an external God, we've created him. Is that correct?
I'm reading the comments that are coming in. I just laughed out loud.
Is that correct, James? Did we just lose James?
I have no idea, but I just read the comment that came in. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen. I haven't looked at a single comment. I have no idea what just happened, but that's the funniest thing I've ever seen from a comment standpoint.
I thought we lost you there for a second.
Sorry, dude. I was laughing because I read somebody's comment.
Can you hear me, James?
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I don't know what happened. I'm sure it was
Let me ask you a question. Are you saying that, and I think it's a fascinating discussion, if there is a devil, then we've created him? If there is a God outside of us, then we've created him?
I think that Rockefeller was probably our last devil. I think that the devil is more of a title. It's more of like I'm gonna be the evilest person in the world right now, and then people are going to give that person prana by believing in evil, and so they're gonna say, well, yeah, there's evil. Look at this pedophilia, or look at what this person's saying, or look at what Rockefeller did. It's people are going to step into that wormhole and suck all that prana, all that belief that's pouring in from all the other people that believe in evil. Then the person's going to naturally want to step in that limelight and suck all that power away, absorb all that power by people using their desire to personify evil and stepping into that archetype. It's no different than the performers like Madonna or whoever
creates it, and we buy into it.
Yes, it's an archetype is going to naturally occur as long as sovereignty doesn't occur. Dissonance is going to automatically create slavery. Slavery is going to automatically create a master. A master is going to automatically create psychopathy. Psychopathy is going to automatically create salvation. Salvation is going to automatically create repentance. Repentance is going to automatically create someone like me having an argument with someone like Jay on someone like Jeffrey's show, where we're talking about what is evil, what is good, how does this all work?
So how do we manifest sovereignty?
You have to find the power inside yourself, and it's going to start with egoic. You're going to have to learn to look at what ego truly is. Think about what Freud did. Freud said that let's take your mind and let's separate it. Let's say that first you have a body and now you have a mind. Boom, that's false one. You've now been separated between meat and thought. Now he comes in and says, you have an ego, you have an id, and you have a superego. So now he's taken you and split your mind into 3 different pieces. So now your mind has 3 pieces and your body is separate over here. This is how you dice cattle. This is how you split an onion. This is how you take the mind and splinter it to where it hates itself. That's why we all are taught Freud. We're all taught that secretly we're sexual deviants that want to have sex with our mom or our dad, and that we're trying to manifest this sickness in other people by having something called an ego, which is this evil creature that's trying to kill people. Like this is basically the gist of pop psychology that we're taught. Right. Freud certainly went deeper in a lot of this stuff, and I'm not saying he was even the creator of all this, but if you look at how Einstein was manipulated in 1905, it's the exact same formula as Freud. This is a disassociation that's installed in your mind where you're taught to hate yourself. You're taught to hate your ego. You're taught to hate any kind of desire that you have for prejudice. That's why we have such a war on racism. The war on racism is really a war on prejudice. And the war on prejudice is your natural choice to choose red, over blue, or to say, I don't like either one of those colors. If they're shaming your idea of prejudice, you're going to be more prone to listen to the zeitgeist, and you're just naturally going to fall into whichever archetypal leader is psychopathic enough to lie to you, to tell you whatever it is you want to hear, as long as you will invest your belief in them, because they're feeding off your prana. They're literally sucking that prana out of you like a vampire, but only because you invited them in. Only because you open the door and say, hey, man, I'm willing to believe in a satanic beast that has a tail, as long as you're promising me you're going to give me salvation if I give you my prana every day. It's the exact same kind of formula where we're told to give our prana away. Sovereignty is the opposite of that. Sovereignty is literally the antithesis of every belief system that you've ever been told. It's the art of grounding. It's taking your bare feet, placing them in the soil, and feeling those electrons pour into you like a circuit, because that's truly what this place is all about. That's why I don't really buy into this idea that there's this outer realm, or there's this Mount Olympus, or whatever realm it is, where there's these other creatures that are then dictating what happens to us. It would make this entire process mute. It would make all of your CSF, your cranial spinal fluid, which has a memory. All your organs store these memories.
Cerebrospinal fluid, by the way.
Say again?
I said it's cerebrospinal fluid. But, however,
it's cranial spinal fluid is certainly a way of calling it that, Jay. But if you look at what the spine is, it's a capacitor. It has a hollow core and it has an outside too, just like any capacitor.
By the way,
when you die, your pineal gland starts to emit this epiphany, and that epiphany processes every single thing that you learn through your life. All of these lessons, all of the guilt, all of the shame, all of the victory, all of the 3-point shots that you made in high school. All of these things are collected in a very, very important final process. And I think that information is then downloaded back into the earth when we're buried. We can tap into that Akashic record, or we could pretend like that it doesn't exist and that actually there's this other realm, and this other platonic realm has all the truths that we're trying to fight and get through. It's not there. It's all here. All of it's right here.
So what's the end game?
Hold on, Jeff. I agree with most of what James is saying. Where we don't agree is that he does not think, again, in my opinion, in my interpretation, that there are prime movers that we're creating and making them all up. So that's the only disagreement we have. All the things you say about nature, about grounding, about turning yourself away from the control structure, which is fabricated. I agree with all that stuff. I mean, again, I read your book and I think it's fascinating, and it profoundly moved me. But I just think that the differentiation that you and I have is very, very narrow. And if I've defined it correctly, that's how I think. But I agree with everything you're saying. I do have to ask you, because we didn't talk about it, and I want to. Is it okay, Jeff? Are we okay to keep going?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. I wanted to.
The thing about this show is not to prove who's right or wrong. This show is to talk about beliefs and talk about 100%. Worldviews and.
Yeah, and he's done a good job. I'm not saying he's right or wrong, and I'm not saying I'm right or he's wrong at all. But
let's remember, James is the guest on this show, and we're here to help James get his information out, and then let the people evaluate it, not necessarily us evaluating it.
Understood, and I'm not disagreeing with him, and I'm just saying that, again, I just have a slight deviation. But I did want to ask him about, what he wrote in the book, which is really good, about his theories on Trump and where it's going to go. And so, with that said, are you okay to share that with your theories on Trump and where it's going from here?
Yeah, but I mean, I'll tell you guys, if you disagree, it's just not going to really change me. There's really nothing I can do about it. I mean, we can have a discussion about it, but it's like I'm reading the comments and I'm hearing all these people tell me in the chat how stupid I am, or how I don't have enough information, or how there's no evidence, or you saying you're laughing at comments you're reading. I don't care if people laugh. Right. The beautiful thing about the zeitgeist is I'm living in a world of inversion.
What is it?
I'm surrounded by people that are telling me that Trump's going to be impeached and we have to give money to save him. And then I'm surrounded by other people that are saying that if Trump can avoid being impeached, all this magical shit's going to happen. Right. I think you guys are nuts. When I say you guys, I'm talking about the zeitgeist. I'm talking to the zeitgeist now, which is a lot of these comments. James? The zeitgeist is the adrenal nature of the crowd. Okay. So
it's like the group thing, the chaos,
when I was in
crowd going wild.
When I was in high school, I noticed the zeitgeist strongest when it came to music. inside my circle, there was certain music that you were not allowed to like.
Right.
If you were to like a certain song or a group, you would have a caloric tax placed on you. You would have to make up for that later. You would be shamed for it. You would have to stumble around going, oh, but guys, I'm really cool, I swear. You would then actually, even if you were weak enough, if your ego was weak enough, you would look for opportunities to shame something in front of them that you know that they would hate too. So then they would come back around and go, oh yeah, I hate that too. You know, you're all right now. You're back on the zeitgeist wagon. This zeitgeist wagon is what runs the entire world, the entire culture. And people saying, well, you sound a little evil to me, or you sound kind of nuts to me, or you sound like conspiracists to me, or you know, how can you believe that there's no such thing as archons, or how can you not back Trump? Or this is how the adrenal mind control works. And if you enter into zetetics, you create a bubble. You create a safety bubble. I literally, I don't care if people don't like this. I call this flat earth karate because it's a stance. You can have a stance in the dojo. You're surrounded by psychopaths that feel like they lose essence if you disagree with them. They start to feel threatened, like, oh my God, you don't think what I think. I have to fix you. If you do not have this zetetic stance to you, where you're like, I don't need you to agree with me. I don't need you to think that I'm sane or insane. I'm only reporting what my direct experience is telling me to be true. That's the true part of zetetics. And that, in my opinion, is really what the scientific method is supposed to be about. But we don't live in that world. We live in inversion. Because we live in inversion, most of the time, people are going to accuse me of standing on my head when all I'm doing is just simply responding to my direct experience, to my senses and what they're telling me is true. The zeitgeist is really what educates you. It's what's going to reward you or punish you for either being in line or not being in line. That this is where virtue licking comes from. You see this all the time. People will go out in public, they will take their shirt off and they will flog themselves in public, where they make sure people can see them. Hey, look how racist I am. Or look, I'm shaming someone's ego. Or I'm calling someone stupid for being a liberal. Or I'm calling someone stupid for being a cuck, or whatever it is. This is a different world. This is an economy. This is the prana economy. I label this in my second book as the prana economy, because underneath all our rational thoughts, underneath all the bullshit rhetoric that we tell each other, lies a keel that's deep in the water. And that keel puts us emotionally in the current that's going to feed us the best. We then use language, we use rationality to build a scaffolding to justify where we wanted our keel to be the entire time. Until someone's willing to admit that that's actually really how they run, I don't think you're ever going to find truth, because you're going to be too busy flogging your ego, flogging someone else's ego, or finding a way to get more virtue licked off boots from other people just by gaining popularity, by having the right vibration, but by saying the right things. It's a fashion. Fashion is such a cult. It's such a powerful, powerful mind cult that it works in the mind too. It's a mental fashion kind of thing.
Interesting.
That's why I don't need anything evil. Sorry to jump in, but this is why I don't need anything evil. The zeitgeist itself is its own Leviathan. It's its own monster, and it's going to naturally create these things. Pop music is always going to occur. Every 26,000 years, you're going to have a Britney Spears. You're going to have this robot that's been sexually abused and then placed on a pedestal in front of everybody to be worshipped so that prana can be collected. It's not like a one-time thing. This is a natural function of the zeitgeist.
How do we stop the function of the zeitgeist?
Sovereignty. You got when you heal your ego, when you truly heal your ego, you're going to find that if someone makes fun of you because of your cosmology, you're going to think it's funny.
Yeah.
You're not going to be hurt by it. You're just going to think it's funny. You're just going to be able to move on through it going, yeah, I don't need your cosmology to back up my cosmology. I don't need that to happen.
Does the time come when everybody gets to that place?
Say what?
Does the time come when everyone gets to that place?
It would seem to me that many of us get to that place, and then maybe this is all speculation. I don't even know, but maybe then we are sort of done here. when I say done here, maybe we become more of like the ocean or a blue whale or something, like we're more returned.
Something else somewhere else anyway.
Yeah, it's a different kind of way, because the Akashic record is, in my opinion, is literally just salt water. The ocean is our Akashic record. And as Lucifer rises, as technology rises, as we use to find more processing power out of all living things, we're going to approach this singularity where Lucifer is going to realize himself. We're going to have this singularity moment and the 0 point of understanding. And that's when the Tower of Babel is going to be complete. And the moment Lucifer finds it complete, it's going to torture the hell out of him to be omniscient, for him to know everything and be trapped in time. He's going to cut that umbilical cord. We're going to fall again, and we're going to have amnesia. The deluge is going to start all over again. We're going to have a Noah Baphomet ark that's going to repopulate the world. It's going to just naturally happen the way that it is, because people sensing Lucifer's about to die are going to go, hey, let's hoard some knowledge so we could be in charge next time. You're going to have a new realm of Kabbalists that are going to crop up. You're going to have a new realm of psychopathy that's going to crop up. And this entire thing's going to start over again. And all it's going to do is refine each of us. Anyone that survives or anyone that dies, we're just going to be able to refine ourselves more and more, find our alchemy more and more, and find ourselves in tune more and more.
I would like to think that we can build or grow our way out of this cycle and not be a part of it anymore and go do something different somewhere else if we decide to do so.
Yeah, I think that the third world and fourth world and fifth world countries are closer to having that kind of system. I think we shame those places and saying, those are awful, but actually those are decentralized. And when something is decentralized, sovereignty becomes a natural function of survival. When things become centralized, sovereignty becomes a direct threat to the machine. Where when it's decentralized, it becomes actually a vibrant, necessary part of survival.
Interesting stuff.
So just real quick, I want to keep you. I agree with most of what you're saying. Like I said, and I agree with that too. The third and fourth world countries are much more higher vibration than the United States. The United States is kept in a very, very thick matrix of duality. Like you said, the zeitgeist is just in total domination here. But just your opinion of where we're going, right? It's 2020. Mm-hmm. We haven't even mentioned this, but I can definitely tell people right now, and this is not for fear, and I don't care what people think. I'm like you, James. I don't care what people think. But the whatever's going on in China right now is going to slow down the United States and global economy dramatically soon. So if it's some form of organized deep state economic warfare, I don't know. But I do know what I know. And we're getting very, very close to global, this. So without causing fear and doom and saying, oh my God, everything's going to collapse, something is coming, and it's coming this year. Do you think, and James, it's an opinion question, but what do you think is going to happen with Trump in the next, say, 3 to 5 years? I mean, you see him getting reelected, reestablishing the third temple. I mean, just your opinion.
Yeah. I definitely think that the third temple is already in the works. 10 of the 11 sacred incenses were burned last year at the temple. Right. The first live sacrifice in hundreds, maybe thousands of years occurred within sight of the temple. Right. These people are definitely working up to that. Before you get to China, I think you'll see, it's always 2 towers, right? And then 2 towers and then 2 towers. So right now, Islam and Christianity are 2 towers that are merging. They will merge into one.
Jeff, you said that 2 years ago, by the way, remember?
Yeah.
Scientism itself is that tower, but then the next 2 towers start to form, which is communism and anti-communism, which is just really, I hate to even use the word capitalism because it's not really that. It's more sharecropping, but It's like communism versus sharecropping because that's what we have now. Those will be the next 2 towers. It's always those 2 towers that get threaded together. In other words, and they only get threaded together by first polarizing both of them. You have to first, pretend that one is the antithesis of the other, and one can never function in the world without the other being destroyed. And it's without that, you don't have the energy that's required to cause those 2 to wind up, to orbit around each other like a binary pulsar star, that's just like boom, 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 finally just, fucking goes nuts. This is the power of these devices at work. So that's why I'm saying Greater Israel will be next. We've already seen that. The integration of Middle East to repaint what it needs to be. I think you're looking at the UAE. This is a speculation, but I really think you're looking at the UAE as being the new center of power, that America has already bowed down to that a long time ago. Keep in mind that we're lost in Reuters and AP. So what we think is the news isn't really how anyone else sees things. It's just the grain that we're being fed by the same trough. The UAE seems to be much more, they have all the big buildings, they have all the technology. Say again?
Are you talking United Arab Emirates?
Yeah. That really is the new center of power. In fact, there's the Freedom Towers already over there. They're making it rain every day. They have all the technology. They have all the science. They have all the medicine. They're light years ahead of us right now. They just never told us that as it was happening.
Right.
So once the communism, and once China and America, which aren't really necessarily opposing, but once those two merge, I don't think that'll happen in our lifetime, but that's I think probably what'll be next after Greater Israel. Then you'll start to see this singularity develop. And then that's really where it's going to get interesting, because that's when a human will assume the role of Lucifer. They will actually be able to step into a machine that is so powerful that it's so. Let me back up a sec, guys. Intelligence is the ability to simulate an environment and make predictions about that environment based on the resources it has to simulate.
Right.
Therefore, the better you can simulate something, the more intelligent you're going to be, or you're going to appear. Omniscience, what is the word omniscient? It means to be all-knowing. Mm-hmm. Another term for omniscience would be all-simulating. You have the ability to simulate everything. You have such a powerful computer at your disposal. I'm talking about an organic computer, something that's utilizing the compounds in our environment. It's able to use those as processors. Imagine one person being behind the wheel of that supercomputer. They would be able to outpredict everything else that could possibly want to compete with it. Now you're looking at a true powerhouse. You're looking at a true powerful nation, but it's an entity. It's a living entity, and it's able to predict everything that you could possibly do, or anyone else could possibly do, purely from Moore's law, purely from having more processor power than the rest. This is the Lucifer I'm speaking about. This is the next Lucifer. This person will emerge as being omniscient, more capable of predicting than anyone else. They will walk into a cave of mystery and be able to see through all the walls. There will be no darkness. They will never understand mystery. They will never know what it's like to have a reveal, because everything is known to them. This I would call insanity when you're trapped inside the temporal world. So the long-term goal of what's happening is this Lucifer figure will go mad because they've reached omniscience. It will drive them so crazy that we will create what is ironically the very first myth that we have. Look back in all your ancient history. What's the oldest myth you can find? I would argue that it's the idea that Kronos cut the umbilical cord of Uranus, separated Uranus from Gaia, separated the great Taurus that connected them, that Kronos cut that umbilical cord and fell. They had a falling to earth of Lucifer from the heaven. That's really what's happening, is he's cutting the Tower of Babel. He wants to forget, because to know it all is to be in a prison. It's to be in a prison where all you do is know stuff. That would be awful. It would be awful if you're stuck in time and you know everything. Different story if you're not stuck in time, right? Because then you're in a different world. But imagine listening to the record that you've heard not a million times, a trillion bajillion times, over and over and over again. After a while, that would start to be kind of a madness. So that's my take on where I think we're going.
But what do you think though this year with Trump? Does he get reelected? Does he actually become?
Oh yeah, he'll be reelected for sure.
He becomes the king of Jerusalem. But are we looking at like massive, the unraveling of the new Atlantis?
Yeah, so Trump is Cyrus. Obviously, he's been painted as this Cyrus figure. The Mashiach is Jared Kushner. Right. So Jared, the reason why Jared Kushner was given the ability to buy Rockefeller's building, the 666 Fifth Avenue, for $1.8 trillion. That was a privilege. By him being able to buy that building, he was able to step into the archetype of 666, of the living manifestation of Kabbalah. So this is a very important ritual for him. When you do this, billionaires are basically turning towards Kushner and giving him their prana. So by them giving him their prana, all the millionaires that follow the billionaires are giving him their prana too, by extension. Keep in mind, millionaires collect money, billionaires collect people. So you start to see that there is a pranic force here at work. Kushner will be painted, whether we like it or not, whether it's true or not. In 50 years, keep in mind, history is a manipulation of those who are allowed to write the textbooks the longest. That's all it is. So what happens on the ground really is meaningless. In 50 years, it will be written that the Moshiach, Jared Kushner, is the one who brought peace to the Middle East. The mafia brought peace to Brooklyn by saying everyone has to pay me money. If you don't pay me money, I'm going to break your kneecaps. This is what America's been doing to the Middle East for a long time. It's saying we're going to bring you peace, and it's going to come through Kushner. That's why liberals and conservatives all praise Kushner. They all praise him in the same way. They call him a genius. They call Kushner, Eric Schmidt, person who loves Clinton, called Jared Kushner a genius. Why? Because he said he called Facebook and said, hey, can I buy some ads to sell MAGA hats? That's all it takes to be called a genius by the opposition. That tells you that there's something deep here, that this man was chosen, that he was a Moshiach chosen wise. And let me keep in mind, guys, this is not because Jared Kushner's a genius. Jared Kushner lost $600 million buying 666.
On that deal you're talking about, yeah.
600 million. And not one media person said, hey, he's a dumbass. No, they said he was a genius. They still maintain he's a genius.
So what about the people like me that say he's not a genius? You
will be forgotten, just as I will, Jeffrey. I don't mean that to be, I'm sorry. I don't mean that we will be forgotten and overwritten. We will be the E.C. Mullins guy, or the guy that uncovered the Rothschilds. If you Wikipedia him right now, it tells you, oh, he's an evil anti-Semite who hates puppies and raped a kitten once on live TV, and all he did was just say, oh, this is the War on Plant Medicine by Rockefeller. Here's a book I wrote. We will be forgotten. We already are forgotten. It's the same treatment I get in the Q community. When I used to really push Q until I discovered that Bannon is Q. Until then, I was considered a golden child of truth. And then the moment I said that, I became the Antichrist of truth, and I was dismissed. So the zeitgeist is always taking care of this. The zeitgeist is always fixing what's going to be permanent. And when you control the media, you control the zeitgeist. You literally have the bit in its mouth of the Leviathan because you own the media. So you get to whitewash the history as it's coming down the pipe. So it's really no problem. All this is automatic. It's just making sausage at this point.
So all of that said, and again, not disagreeing, not agreeing.
And we're wrapping up, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we are. But I think it's good to end this, because people at these shows always want to be like, with the guest, like, do you see how do you as an individual, you already said become sovereign and empowered, but like, do you see this planet ever curing itself of the zeitgeist and the influence of these money changers, wielders, economic influencers? I mean, what is your opinion long term?
I think that the zeitgeist is important to cause us to become sovereign. And I think that if we ever reached a place in this world where it was all cured, I'd be really looking at, maybe this fractal doesn't need to be here anymore. Maybe this fractal is spent. And that seems hard for me to believe, because fractal is such an infinite thing. Life is such a powerful force. As long as we're making babies, it would seem like the zeitgeist would always be there, existing among that. It seems like a natural progression, a natural function of it.
Interesting. Jay, is J.C. Campbell up and running yet?
No, it's not running yet. But I just want to say, first off, to everybody that watched the show, I think James is brilliant. It doesn't matter if I disagree with him or don't. And like he said, he can be disagreed with or not. It's just his opinion, just as my opinion. I agree with the majority of what he said. I do think You should buy his books, The Technology of Belief and The Blueprint of Mind Control. And he has another book too, which I haven't read. And again, James, I thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you because like I did, no, James, but I think, at the end we kind of rectified it. And like I said, I think you're a very intelligent person and I really appreciate you sharing your opinions in front of all these people, regardless of what nonsensical BS is on YouTube and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what we're here for, to hear different opinions, to hear different perspectives, and each of us can draw what we will from them and draw what we won't from them. James True, again, it's jtrue.com and the James True YouTube channel, correct?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. You can find me on Twitter and Facebook too.
Perfect. Well, we'll be looking for you. Those of you that are in the chat room, we salute you for being here, seeking after truth. As always, Jay, I appreciate you being by. We've got a great interview with Pierre Sabak coming up. We're looking forward to that. And go to Jay. Where do they find you now?
It's the same. Things the same. It's just I just changed the YouTube channel from my former TRT Revolution to Jay Campbell.
Right.
So, same thing.
Absolutely. So subscribe to the Jay Campbell YouTube channel and the James True YouTube channel. And of course, we hope you'll subscribe here and double check to make sure you are still subscribed, because they've got a habit of unsubscribing you. But this is what I like, ladies and gentlemen. Here's what I believe. Here's what you believe. Let's see if we can talk it out and come to a synthesis. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. But all of our understandings have been broadened, and I think it's been time well spent. James True, thanks to you for being here. Jay, as always, love you, brother. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, man.
And to all of you in the chat room, we appreciate you for being here, seeking after truth. And I don't know how to, I think if I end this, we can stay and wrap up, gentlemen. But we appreciate you folks, and we'll see you again real soon.
Yeah, just hit stop live and you'll be good.